molecular decimation, breakdown, and reformation is inherently purging.
Where our greatest creations meet our deepest fears.
Something went wrong, Seth. When you went through, something went wrong.
You are about to go beyond that limit.
That was a good trailer. I like that one.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
They threw in a lot of the end sequence, though.
I know. And I feel like they shouldn't have shown him in fly makeup.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin.
I'm Jake.
And this is Movie Matters. Today we're talking about the 1986 film The Fly, continuing with our horror kick in October. Spooky season. And this movie fucked me up. I told you that before, because I watched it a couple months ago for the first time ever, and then just rewatched it for our podcasts. But when I first watched it, the movie stuck with me for weeks. I don't know. Tell me about your experience, Jake.
So I had seen it a long time ago. Because I had seen the original Fly from the 50s, 58 or something like that.
Yeah, 58.
And then when I found out there's a remake, I watched this one, and they're very different. Even the plots are almost not at all similar. So it's different enough that I guess it kind of warrants, a remake. But yeah, I mean, I understood why you'd be bummed out at the end of it. It's a pretty upsetting ending.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, this movie is not quite horror. At least not in the scary sense. It's more like maybe psychological horror combined with grotesque horror. It really pushes the boundary on nasty stuff.
It's for sure. It's body horror for sure.
Yeah, yes.
That's what it heavily relies on, in my opinion. From the makeup, this movie we just talked about last week, An American Werewolf in London, that winning the Oscar for Best Makeup. This movie also won the Best Oscar for makeup as well. Well deserved, because the makeup in this movie is insane.
Yeah.
David Cronenberg directed this, and he is known for being pretty gruesome with a lot of his movies and bloody. He's a good director. He did more recent movies for people that are familiar with his newer work. Is he did A History of Violence, which is really good, with Viggo Mortensen. He also did Eastern Promises, which is really good. I think he's a good director. Some of his stuff is hit or miss. This, I love it. I love the movie. It's just depressing as all hell.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really well done movie. There's a lot of interesting elements to it that are kind of introduced throughout the movie and really kind of ratchet up the emotional tension, I guess, between the characters, even with you as an audience member. So it plays a lot with your emotions and does a pretty good job of it. Agreed.
And it's a pretty simple production if you think about it, because it's just three characters, really. There's no other side characters for the most part. It takes place in three locations, and it's almost like a stage play. And Goldblum's acting is also very kind of Shakespearean, and he always points with his finger and this and that, and that's how he talks, and it's very kind of almost opera-ish. It's interesting.
Yeah, as he continues through the transformation, he kind of gets more and more exaggerated in like his movements and his speaking and like that kind of stuff, which I think is pretty cool. And like he does do a really good job of shifting from a very like shy, mild-mannered, quiet scientist into this like asshole that's like on this like quest for power, which is like really, really well done. And like he does a great job of like gradually ratcheting that up throughout the movie until the ending, where he's kind of back to just being like meek and like basically to the point of begging for help,
Yeah, among other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Goldblum acting is absolutely awesome in this movie. It's funny to see kind of, stars in their young early days and how different they look. Like, his teeth are crooked in this, and like, that's kind of before he really hit it big. And
before Jurassic Park.
Yes. He was poised to be nominated for an Oscar for this movie, I read, and the Academy just doesn't favor horror movies. They never really have.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing because, again, his performance is excellent in this. It's excellent. Even Geena Davis is great. And John Getz. Like, they're the three main characters, and they're all great, but Goldblum obviously stands out. Especially, like you said, with his ratcheting up and his, little ticks where he's, twitching his head, and, he like, it's like a fly. It's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of like little things he does that like gradually or like kind of like allude to the fact that he's changing. Like, and they're very subtle at first, and then over time become more and more obvious and like hard to kind of sweep away or brush away as like a one-off weird thing that he did. Where like early on he might do like some weird like scratching or something, then later on it's like he's just sitting there like picking at his skin. Like while he's like sitting and talking, and it's like, really, really cool stuff. Really, another detail-oriented movie that's well done.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the whole buildup of it all with the pods in general are super cool. The computer, like, it doesn't. I mean, obviously the computer is a little out of date, but like, it seems so modern and like. It's just a cool design with those pods.
Well,
and
it's voice activated, which is like, it keeps it, I think, relevant in like a weird way. So lots of like very futuristic things, but also not so futuristic that it's like not believable. It struck a good balance between sci-fi.
Yes.
And like just being like completely ridiculous, and like no one would buy it, It's
very grounded sci-fi.
Yeah, right.
Very grounded sci-fi, for sure. For sure. The whole, transmitting the baboon from one pod to the next, and it comes up. That scene is absolutely disgusting and like scarred me for life. Where it shows the baboon inside out. It's so disgusting.
Yeah.
And like I have a pretty high tolerance. Twitching. Yeah. I have a high tolerance for that stuff, and that stuff, like, again, the movie fucked me up.
Yeah.
It was gross. And then
I mean all the effects in this movie are great.
Oh yeah.
And like really you said that Cronenberg's kind of known for being like grotesque and bloody. I feel every instance of that was well deserved in this movie, because you're trying to tell what ultimately is a grotesque story. So I feel like nothing was necessarily overdone, but like I have a feeling that a lot of people would have a hard time stomaching a lot of the things in this movie. So, but that's kind of the point, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Gratuitous grotesqueness.
Yeah,
there's not it's grotesque, but I wouldn't I agree. It's not overly gory. It's just if you think about it, there's not a ton of gore in general for the most part. It's more shock factor and stuff falling apart.
Yeah,
pieces of people falling apart. Specifically, Goldblum's character.
Yeah, and it never lingers too long either on that stuff, which I think helps, especially for people who have to look away and can't necessarily stare at an inside out monkey for more than a second.
Yeah.
So but I do think it is well balanced in terms of pushing you to be uncomfortable without making you get sick, or make the movie unwatchable.
Yeah. Did you watch this with your wife?
Yeah, I did. She left halfway through.
No.
Yeah, she was like, "Nah, I can't watch this anymore."
Yeah. See, it's not for everyone, but it's brutal. So, the whole gradual process of him transforming into the Fly and his skin deteriorating, his fingernails falling off, his ear falling off, all these, his skin bubbling and getting all gross and pimply. It's a metaphor for disease, cancer. Some people even say it's a metaphor for AIDS and the AIDS pandemic or epidemic, because that was happening and it was in full force around this time in the 80s. And it's also a metaphor for the aging process. That's mainly what Cronenberg was going for, is the aging process and disease and how it takes you over and changes who you ultimately are, which is crazy. And they do a great job of showing that in this movie.
Yeah. I think the other subtext to this is power, where when he discovers that he has this new strength and stamina, he just continually abuses it and keeps seeking out more and more. It's a good metaphor for I don't know what you'd want to classify it as, the obsessive seeking of more and more power, through whatever means necessary.
I think a good scene that kind of defines that too is kind of early-ish on during his transformation is where he goes and arm wrestles the guy in the bar and just breaks the guy's wrist.
Yeah.
That
and
scene
is
just
walks away.
Yeah. And takes the girl, and the girl's like, "Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll go with you. Take me to your random ass warehouse in the middle of fucking nowhere." Which, I mean, the movie opens with that. And Geena Davis goes, by, and she kind of says, "Oh, this is a little strange," but still sticks with it. I just find that whole thing funny. Obviously, no sane woman is going to go to some random warehouse with a stranger.
Right.
Ever.
No.
I'd hope not.
Yeah.
For their sake.
Right.
But, I mean, obviously, it's a movie, and it helps drive the plot.
Yeah.
But that whole scene where Geena Davis goes back because, Goldblum is looking for a woman that can keep up with his lifestyle, and because he's crazy and high energy now. And she's like, "Be afraid, be very afraid." That's become such a common, almost pop culture line. And I didn't know it was from this movie.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
That's the tagline of the movie, and it's comical who came up with it. It's Mel Brooks, guy from Spaceballs and Blazing Saddles. He was actually he's an uncredited producer on this movie. He helped get it made, and he didn't take credit because he didn't want people to be like, "Oh, it's a Mel Brooks movie. I'm not going to take it seriously."
Yeah. That makes sense.
So, kind of funny because it ties into our last review on American Werewolf in London, where it's like John Landis is known for comedy. And again, a lot of people went in thinking it's a comedy, and they got, blood and guts. With this, it's good that he didn't take credit for it. He also did, he was uncredited as a producer on The Elephant Man, which again is on our list. I mentioned in our last one. And it's another kind of makeup-centric movie that started the whole Oscar, trophy for those. It started all best makeup for Oscars. It's interesting.
That's a good decision. I think a lot of people would not have taken either of those seriously if it had Mel Brooks' name on them.
Yeah, agreed. Because it's all he's known for is comedy.
Yeah, right.
So, let's talk more about the makeup and him transforming. It's so well done and so disturbing, and it's very practical. It's all practical. Like him even walking on the ceiling is practical. The whole vomiting. And it's acid vomit, because that's what flies do, is when they land, they throw up and try and digest the food. And him doing that is insane in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it's
he
really
uses
cool.
it as a weapon. Yeah.
Yeah.
He uses it as a weapon to melt Stathis Borans, by the way. John Getz's character. Stathis Borans. What a name.
Yeah.
Cronenberg's a weird dude, I think, in general. Even Martin Scorsese was like, you look like a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon when he met him. The guy looks creepy too. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of him.
I've never seen.
He came up with that name 100%. And it's just a goofy ass name. Like, who the fuck? What kind of name is that?
Well, even Goldblum's character is Seth Brundle.
Brundle, yeah.
Which is also a weird name.
Brundlefly. Well, he named it, he wanted to name it after a race car driver. Martin Brundle, which in the sequel, the son is named Martin Brundle. And speaking of that, I've not seen the sequel, but the whole scene. So Geena Davis's character gets pregnant in this, and she's worried about it being genetically fucked up and have the fly DNA in it. And then that whole nightmare scene where she births the larva is disgusting.
Yeah. It's pretty nasty.
Another scene that comes to mind for me in another movie is Prometheus, the alien movie.
Oh, yeah.
Ridley Scott, the newer one, where she births the alien and or gets the abortion cutting open her stomach, the C-section, if you will, the emergency C-section. Disgusting.
Yeah.
So very interesting. Goldblum wasn't really well known, like I said, for this movie, and the producers actually had, they were opposed to him starring in this, and because he wasn't a bankable star. And this movie did well at the box office. It had a low budget, and it made good money, and it spawned sequels. And they were, Chris Wallace, the guy who did the effects work on this and all the makeup, was worried about Goldblum's face because he's got big ears, he's got a big nose, he's got very big characteristics. And he's like, the smaller someone's face, the better it is to work. And they got Goldblum, who has a big face, and it's just funny. And Goldblum even suggested him and Geena Davis were dating at the time. And he suggested for Geena Davis to play the love interest in this. And Cronenberg was hesitant because he's like, I don't want to work with a couple. That never works out well in Hollywood. But she read for the role and they read other people and they're like, yeah, there's no question. She's it. She's the one. So pretty cool. I don't know. I think that's a fun little fact. Yeah. Just again, the whole transformation, Brundle goes through, I read that Brundle goes through the stages of grief during all his transformation, which is interesting. It's cool. Denial. He refuses to believe anything is wrong.
Yeah.
Then, he believes that he's improved again, him going and breaking the guy's wrist, and him doing all those acrobatics in his house.
Right.
Anger, he becomes short-tempered. Fear, he's afraid to see his body starting to deteriorate. He's putting his, teeth and stuff in the Natural History Museum of Brundle.
Yeah.
And then bargaining, he attempts to arrest the process by fusing with another life form, where he wants to, fuse with Geena Davis. And then acceptance at the end, where he begs for death, which is, again, it's so depressing.
Yeah, the end scene too is one of the coolest effects moments in the movie, where he's like this big giant, like almost like the Hunchback of Notre Dame looking thing, and like as he's trying to drag Geena Davis like into the pods, like his body just starts molting, and then he turns into like a fly man with like a real fly face, and like it's like got the little things that are like moving in his mouth and stuff, and she rips his jaw off and just throws it on the floor. Lots of really cool effects that like really, I think, bump up the climax of the movie in like a really punchy kind of way, that make it really like impactful.
Agreed. My like one sentence review of this was, my jaw is on the floor just like Jeff Goldblum's. It's literally my review of this movie. It's, and then his wig literally gets split, and like the bug head comes out of it. Yeah. Which is so crazy. And then, the legs come out of it, like the flesh just like melts off. It's crazy. And then speaking of melting, like I said, he vomits on, which again, vomiting in general is just disgusting. Yeah. And then it melting someone's hand, and that process of how they melted it down is super cool. And then his leg, and it's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. The effects of the melting were like super well done. It's like the hand is pretty cool. But there's a little shot where he kind of barfs on the leg off frame, and then they show it for a second. You can like see the bone as it's like disintegrating. It's actually a pretty cool effect.
Agreed. I mean, it's very gruesome, very grotesque, but not insanely bloody, like we said. It's just it's like gross factor. It's body horror.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of like nails falling off, teeth falling out, ear falling off. Things just falling off all over them.
Yeah. And then in the end, he tries to go into the pod to assimilate with Geena Davis, the baby, and himself, but he ends up, mutating with the machine. And he falls out, and then he's crawling, and he just grabs the shotgun with his insect claw and pulls it up to his head, and then she blows off his head.
Yeah.
And then the movie just ends. It's so depressing. It's kind of like the last movie we just reviewed, An American Werewolf in London, where the movie, the main character dies, and it just ends.
Yeah. Well, like, I think, it's the right thing to do in like these kinds of horror movies, especially when the theme of the movie is some sort of like unreversible negative transformation or transition, and like just end it. And no like bullshit afterwards of trying to tie up in a bow or something. Like, no, like it's supposed to be emotionally grabbing and shocking, movie, and it does it, blow his head off, end the movie.
Character's dead. There's no more. There's nothing else.
Right.
They did for test audiences. They had the ending where Geena Davis gets back together with John Getz's character Stathis, and the audience was like, I don't want to see that. And like even Goldblum was like, fuck that. Like, that's not what this movie's about.
No.
And
because like frankly, it's not like it's kind of odd to say, but like it's the movie's like I don't know how to put it, but like it's not really about the relationship between Goldblum and Geena Davis. It's more about the penultimate moment between them where it ends. You know,
if you love something, set it free.
Yeah,
and blow
right.
its fucking head off.
Yeah, it's not a like I don't know how to really describe it, but like it's not about like their relationship really. It's kind of bigger than that.
Yeah,
in a way.
It's all about him and him coming out of his shell, but then the shell is a bug, and he's metamorphosed into a giant fucking fly.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe is that the movie's not about their relationship; it's more about his transformation as a person.
And I like that. Yeah, I think it's very well done.
It's frankly, it would have been super boring if this was just a love story.
Agreed.
With like gross shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Know, like
it was the secondary story, if you will. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. It wasn't, as prominent. There were scenes that were deleted that they deleted them because they were too gruesome. Apparently there was a cat and baboon fused together from the pods, and then Goldblum's character beats it to death with a pipe. And I read that they're like, when someone kills an animal, they can't really relate or connect to the character anymore. So we took that out. Yeah, makes sense. I agree. Like again, the baboon, being inside out was a lot for me. I don't like seeing any animals get hurt. Obviously it's a movie, but still.
Well, and that's actually a key. Right after that is like a very key moment because he does show a lot of remorse for that failure, and like that's one of the last times where we see him actually exude like a human kind of reaction to something. Well, I guess that's not true because he gets jealous, and that's why at the end of the day he goes into the machine. But I do think that that's kind of a powerful moment because he doesn't go in to try and like advance society or do some kind of scientific discovery. He goes in there because he's trying to prove a point. Either to himself or to Geena Davis's character. So very much a good point of like starting point of his transformation where it starts in like a negative place. Agreed. And then like progresses from there.
Agreed. Another scene that was deleted is apparently there's a lady in an alley and he just vomits on her and kills her. And they took that out too. So they want, and I'm glad they did. They want it, they want you to relate to the character, and they don't want him to kill people, like because he doesn't kill anyone, he just hurts people. So I'm glad they took that stuff out, and it's a quick watch. It's entertaining. It's depressing as all hell. It fucked me up. I've watched it twice. It hit more the first time for sure. But I think it's a good movie to watch this Halloween season, and I recommend it. I mean, most of the movies we've been watching, like I said, they're good, and we like them, and I mean that's the reason we're watching these is we're picking these supposed classics and supposed great movies, and we want people to revisit them or visit them if they haven't before.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Overall, good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward to the rest of this month because I think the next one, neither of us have seen either, right?
Which one are we doing? Spoiler alert?
Pumpkinhead.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I've not seen it, and I hear it's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm excited
so
for
that'll
that one.
be good. Then after that, I think we're doing
The
Thing?
I think so.
Which is, we've both seen, I think, several times because it's so good.
Yep.
And then we're going to end the month on The Shining, which is like one of the best ever. So
yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that, and I hope you guys are too. And thanks for listening.
Yep. See you guys.
Take care.